Thank you very much. I was going to think we were going to do it in Braille because it was all dark. But now I can see your beautiful faces and excellent. Well, it's a pleasure being here. And I actually have to say, was outside watching the kids do the worship because I'm a born kid and I love seeing the kids doing the worship time together and seeing the young junior leaders leading the worship. And you have to take it all in. It is just fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Just to give you a little bit of my background, here's a picture of my clan. This is my team up the back here. And I know you're looking, I've been married 24 years and I've got a 20-year-old son, an 18-year-old son and a 16-year-old son. My son actually turned 18 on Friday, got his license. That's a big change. And I know you're looking at it and saying, he surely can't have children that age. And it's true, I was a child groom. And I got married when I was 10. My wife trained me up in the way that I should go, and that's where I am today. No, but that's my clan, and they're a pleasure, and just doing life together. And I'll share a little bit about them as we go along. A little bit about my background. I was actually a critical care nurse for 15 years. I worked in a trauma centre at the Alfred Hospital, worked at the Royal Children's Hospital, worked at the Monash Medical Centre, a number of things. I loved people being sick. I know that sounds really morbid. Sounds very morbid, but my wife used to always say to me going, oh, how's your day? And I said, oh, it's ace. It's fantastic. We've had 2 car accidents. We had a gunshot. And they go, do they have a family? Do they have children? And I go, no, but it was really interesting. So it sounds very morbid, but I thought if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be able to help people minister to them in their crisis. And I love what I did there. And then out of left field, I was actually given the opportunity to become the children's pastor at City Life Church, formerly Waverley Christian Fellowship. And many may have known that under Kevin Connor and now Mark Connor. And I was there for 12 years. And I loved being a children's pastor and family pastor. And it sounds ridiculous when I look at the numbers and the size. I had 3 campuses, I had 20 staff, I had 400 volunteers. We were ministering to about 1,000 kids every weekend. It does sound ridiculous, but I loved doing ministry together, and I have a great heart to see young people being used by God and empowered to do the work of the ministry. And I want to commend Don and Lane for their great leadership and fantastic. And I look forward to chatting with them more along and seeing how they develop and see the next generation. We should never take this for granted, please. Can I just say, never take this for granted. Just doing life together. And I'll share a little bit along as we go along that, because this is not normal. You're all abnormal, just say that. Turn to the person next to you and say, you're abnormal. This is abnormal because not many people get to hear very helpful advice and how to do life in general. And so never take this for granted. But I was then had the opportunity from, I was probably 18 months search saying, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to be? And I had the fortunate opportunity that somehow they saw fit that I was going to be the CEO of Focus on the Family. So I finished on the 30th of June and started on the 1st of July. And I've hit the ground running ever since. And it's a privilege because ministering throughout the nation and doing radio, it's quite ironic and very humbling to hear yourself on the radio. The first time I heard myself, I was up in Queensland and I was driving along and I go, sounds familiar. That's me. And because I've got a face for radio and it's working really well for me at the moment. And Focus on the Family has been in Australia for about 20 years, and we've been doing retreats and seminars and training. We also obviously known on the radio broadcast, and we're in and about 500 radio stations throughout Australia. And we've done a few live radio interviews and people ringing in from Northern Territory, Western Australia, Central Australia. I just think, God, you've got me in the right place and I'm just enjoying the ride. I am in my sweet spot. I love talking about healthy relationships and healthy families, and to be in that spot and be able to help as many people as possible, because people need some help. People need help in this area because families aren't easy. It's not rocket science. There is a science to it, but it's not rocket science. But unfortunately, people need to have some gems and nuggets. And so we've been doing that through our website. We've got if you've got a smartphone, you can download all of our broadcasts. So I'd Focus on the Family in Australia. They're not allowed to play on the phone in church, are they? No. But if you did, you can do that. And you can like us on Facebook, and there's just helpful hints along the way about how to do life together. And now I've been doing not just things in churches, but I've also been doing things in schools, and I've also been doing some things in marketplace, talking about stress and resilience. And as I was saying about taking it for granted, I have people coming up to me and saying, because I don't use necessarily Bible and verse, I sometimes say things like, there's an old Hebrew saying, and they just hear this for the first time, and they're going, that's amazing, where does that come from? It's just a privilege to be able to do that. But as I was saying, with regard to Focus on the Family, we're ministered throughout the nation, and we rely on the generous donations of individuals, churches and businesses to support the work of the ministry, because Australia needs a little bit of help. Just to give you a bit of a state of the nation, if you like, here's some statistics that you might be able to see. This is in 2012, because everything's delayed by a year and a half until we get the statistics. There was 129,000 marriages in 2012. There was 49,000 divorces. And a lot of people think, well, that's the reason why you get the 1-to-2 ratio. For every 2 marriages, one ends in divorce. That is not true. In fact, that's a myth of what's actually happening, because they're not taking into consideration all the marriages that were taking place over the years, and probably the fewer divorces. But that's where we get the 1 and 2. But in fact, 70% of all marriages, first-time marriages, actually survive the distance. We should celebrate marriage. We should celebrate the good and the great things that marriage can bring. It's just the world that's actually brought us down to actually accept these areas of dysfunctionality. The other side of things is that the growing trend is 77% of couples decide to live together before they get married. The other side of things is that 10% of all couples are now blended or have step families. And so there's a changing of the guard. There's a change of going on in our society today. The frightening thing is that mental health issues are the most prolific things that have ever been going on in our society. 1 in 5 people would actually have a mental health issue, whether it's psychological, whether it's an addiction, whether it's actually mental health issues. This is what's happening. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, 1 in 4 will suffer from a mental health issue. So young people are actually suffering a lot more in this area of mental health issues. There's a lot of pressure on them. And a frightening figure and a very sad figure is that 6 people today will be successful in taking their own life, and 30 people who are tempted. Australia needs some help. And a frightening figure is that the church is not exempt from some of these figures. It's not identical, but there are some growing trends. So we're not exempt from this. Just by having our faith in Jesus Christ doesn't make you immune to having problems and challenges. But I firmly believe that the church should have the healthiest marriages and have the healthiest families. Now, I'm sure that's this in your family, in your church. Other churches have this problem, not this church. But we need to be able to actually take in consideration that our society needs a little bit of help in this area. And I would actually really like to think that, by what I may be able to share with you today will be of help to you, not only just in your marriage, not only with your parenting, but in life in general, because we all have relationships. We all have stresses. We all need to be able to rise up and dust ourselves off. When people are asked the question, what's the most important thing in their world? What's the most important thing going on in their world? They always say family and relationships. That's what the number one thing is. But they don't really practice what they preach. They say it's important, but they don't necessarily invest in it. And I think we should take the time to invest in it. Not necessarily financially, but just to be able to endeavour to actually focus a little bit more on the area of how to form healthier relationships, how to form healthier dialogue and communication, how to actually resolve conflict more healthily. And so that's what I'd like to share with you today. But family breakdown happens. Kids, rebel against their parents, especially when their parents ask them to clean their room. Heaven help us if they have to clean their room. You're not making me do it. Samantha's parents don't make her clean her room. I can't believe you're making me do this. But this generation is that husbands and wife have a lot of conflict. And if you don't make me happy, then I'll go and find somebody else who will make me happy. Little do they know they're going to take their baggage with them from each relationship until they sort it out themselves. The fact is that we need to be able to make sure that we actually have real friends rather than virtual friends. We spend so many hours. How many likes did I get on my phone today? Did they like what I said? Did they like the picture that I put? Did they like the meal that I actually said on myself? Did they like the fact that I went to the bathroom? Oh, no, I can't tell them that. They put all these things in, so many details, and people forget that there's actually an option that they actually say, can I talk to you on the phone? No, I'm not going to talk to you on the phone. I'm going to talk to my SMS. I get those little, my little thumbs get RSI because I can actually so much more. Kids are actually going to chiropractors now with sort of arches in their neck because they can't look at this, they're looking at the screen. This is changing the guard. Kids don't know how to actually go and play out in the backyard. Go outside. Why? No, go out and have some fun, get some fresh air. What's fresh air? How do they troubleshoot? There's a twig on the ground. How do you move that twig over there? It's on the way. Ring the state emergency service and get it removed. People don't know how to be resilient and solve problems today. We've left them in cotton wool. Let them just go out the backyard and play in the mud. Is this fun? Yeah, it's really fun. The thing is, where did it all go so wrong? Where did it all go so wrong? There is a reason why it goes on. And the Bible is very clear on why it goes so wrong. And if you have got your Bibles here, you can turn to James chapter 4. And it's a very simple verse. And for those who, it's on the screen here. But James chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You want something but don't get it. You kill and you covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and you fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. Does that sound familiar? I want something and I didn't get it, so there I'm going to get back at you. Our whole life is revolving around what's in it for me. All conversations, all conflict, all revolves around this issue. I don't get what I want, and therefore I have got a reason to get back at you. Down through the ages, this has been the norm of how people get quarrels. Wars have started because I want more land, more money, more people to think the way that I feel. More people out of ignorance, really, to get the way that I think. And that's how wars started. And that's how marriages, if we fast forward it down through the ages, both through the Old Testament, the New Testament, and today now, is that the same thing happens. You don't make me happy. You didn't give what I wanted. Therefore, I have got a right to actually move away. My parents have actually asked the kids to do something, that they didn't want to do. Why? And then they have this conflict. This is going through time and time again. We have to learn that it's not all about what we want. It's about what we can offer other people. The fact that we need to actually remedy these things, and unfortunately, as I said, this motivation is what's in it for me, is the problem why there is so much dysfunction going on. Through the Bible, Adam and Eve, wanted to be more like God, and that didn't turn out very well for them. Didn't turn out well for women, by the way. Don't you think? After, I reckon there's going to be a whole long list of people waiting to slap Eve in the face, especially after childbirth. Cain and Abel had a rip-roaring argument, and one of them ended up, not making it to the hospital. And then you've got the other situations down through the ages David, King David, the man after God's own heart, had a very dysfunctional family. He wanted things and he shouldn't have, and that ended in, murder and all sorts of things. And then we have the story about the prodigal son. He wanted something. He wanted to go and enjoy life. He wanted to live it to its full, and yet it ended up heartbroken. Marriages, as I said, breaking up. Kids not respecting their parents, not abiding by the boundaries. And as I said, kids actually have fighting all the time. Who's got a brother and who's got a sister? I bet you if I asked you which button that needs to be pushed to annoy them, you know exactly which button to push. Just because you can. You just do these things just to be able to, I can annoy you, I've got the power over you, and therefore I'm going to use it. my power for evil rather than good. And then we have the same thing in workplaces as well. Anywhere we are, anywhere where we have relationships, there is going to be bound to have some sort of conflict. And I'm sure in a room this size, I'm sure that there's some people here who have actually had their fair share of dysfunctionality and some heartache and had some challenges in their life. Even if it's not now, it will be in the future. I can guarantee it. I don't have to be a prophet to actually say that. Because whenever there is, because we are imperfect beings trying to live the perfect plan that God has for us. And yet we get it so wrong so many times. But God has got a plan for each and one of us. And He's given us His word to be able to actually help us have healthy relationships. Because healthy relationships take time. They take effort. They take you to be consistent. And they actually have to take you away from yourself and think about how I can bless somebody else rather than what's in it for me. And that intentionality is the same way that God sees us. So with the time I have remaining, I'm going to give you 3 tips. Only 3, because, well, when did we finish? 4 o'clock this afternoon? Was that the time? 3 tips on how to have healthy relationships. And it's not exhaustive by any imagination. It's not exhaustive. And you can go away from today. There's 3 ways you can go away. You can actually say, I actually know about healthy relationships more than he does. That's good. Congratulations. Then there's another people who can say, actually, I'm doing okay in this area of healthy relationships. I'm doing okay. That's good as well. Or alternatively, you might go away with one little nugget, one little gem that you could put into practice that actually can help you in your local family, in your extended family, in your neighbourhood, in your workplace. And I hope and trust that that will be the case. Only 3 tips. But I've been actually, as I said, in my position at Focus on the Family, I've been exposed to a whole myriad of different areas of dysfunctionality. And as I said to you before, the church is not exempt. I was just speaking at one church once recently, and this woman came up to me and said, I wish I'd put in some of those things that you said, Brett, into practice. And I said to her, well, it's never too late. I'm the ultimate, optimist. And she said, it is for me. And I said, no, you can start again. She said, I haven't spoken to my daughter for 11 years. Families are estranged. And this is someone in the church. I had someone else coming through, and she's been thrust upon it to look after her 14-year-old grandson by the Department of Human Services, being forced to actually, and the amount of dysfunctionality that this young man has been exposed to, I won't be able to go into great detail, but I'm just thinking this is happening day after day after day. The church is not exempt, and yet I actually firmly believe that we've got so much truth. Never take this for granted, because we should be able to put it into practice and live healthy families and have healthy relationships every step of the way. Let me just pray first off. Father God, I just thank you so much for the opportunity to share your word. I pray that you help me effectively communicate this, and so it will be able to resonate within people's hearts and minds and into action. I pray a blessing upon that in Jesus' most wonderful name. Amen. So the first one's going to be practical, the second one's going to be a soul area, and the third one's going to be a spiritual. So that's going to be my 3. The first one is a table. When I think about a table, I think about love. When I think about a table, I think about a family. When I think about a table, I think about healthy relationships. Everything around my world, any fond memories I have, all occur often around a table. Even back when my nana, we used to go over to her house and she'd make sponge cake, and that was absolutely ginger fluff sponge. She sprinkled a little bit of icing sugar on it, and it was thick cream. And she used to bring out these little tables, the ones that, 3 layers that can come under. And it was just, food is the glue of all healthy families. But down through the ages, the table represented safety. It represented value. It represented that I will care for you, and it represented that I've got your back. I'm going to turn to you, if you've got your Bibles out, in 2 Samuel chapter 9. 2 Samuel chapter 9. And this is about King David. I already mentioned about his dysfunctionality, but he did some really good things as well. David was best friends with Jonathan, Saul's son. And this is after everyone had died and everyone was, going back to some sort of resemblance of normality. And reading from 2 Samuel chapter 9, and I'll go through couple of verses. In verse 1 it says, David said this, "Is there anyone still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake. And one of the servants is named Ziba. That's a great name, isn't it? And he says, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both feet. And I have troubles pronouncing this name. His name was Mephibosheth. All right, you could say that at home because it makes you look really silly when you say it. And he said this, bring him along, bring him in, invite him to my house. Now, if I was Mephibosheth, down through the lineage, it would be probably he was royalty. His neck was on the line. He would probably think, well, David's going to just invite me to the house and then kill me for a barbecue a bit later on. But David said something very profound, because Mephibosheth came up, and he's a crippled boy, and he came up to him, and he looked very anxious. And David said in verse 7, don't be afraid, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Right then, he was a stranger. He was actually disabled. He actually could have killed him, and that was probably, in that time, would have been normal for him to be killed. But yet he showed kindness. He said, you're going to eat at my table. You're going to have everything. You're going to be part of the family. You're going to be part of my family. You're going to be very welcome. You can eat all the food. I'm going to give you inheritance, and I've got your back. You're going to show value to you, and I'm going to show you kindness. Down through the ages, the table represented safety, value. It said that I've got your back. Around my table, I've got 3 sons. And we would aim to have 3 to 5 meals around our table per week, just to do life together. Now, it's difficult with the busyness of life and things like that, but we have so much fun. My wife is very funny. My boys are even funnier. I mean, my mother is here today, and she comes over to my house, takes her hearing aid out because it's just too busy, it's too noisy. But doing life together like that is a high value. Everyone has a voice. Everyone gets a chance to have a say. Everyone gets a chance to be heard. The highs, the lows. We just do life together. In fact, my eldest son's got a friend girl, not his girlfriend, but a friend girl, who invites herself over every Sunday night just to have a meal at our table. Because in her life, she's never had that experience. So she doesn't have a faith, and she says grace with us. She grades us on our grace now, whether it's a good out of 10, that's an 8, that's a 7, that's a bit of humour, that type of thing. And she actually grades us on our conversation. And she says to my boys, never ever take this for granted. Because I've never seen a family so enmeshed together, just doing life together. Now, it doesn't have to be your immediate family. It can be extended family. It can actually, do people feel welcome in your household? Do people actually feel valued? Do people feel like, I've got your back and you're accepted for who you are? You can do that any day of the week. The table is a great place to start. Now, the table, I mean, obviously, mums and dads, you have to be very aware. It shouldn't be the Spanish Inquisition and where you give and tell them everything like that. Because you have to watch your tone and the volume of your voice. It shouldn't be where you're going to be given the nth degree. Now, sometimes young people, just letting you know, just humour me. Sometimes when mums and dads go into lecture mode, it's because they've got your vested interest. So cut them a bit of slack when that happens. But ultimately, the family mealtime should be a place where everyone feels a sense of belonging. And they can ask you any questions whatsoever. And the answer, you may not have to have all the answers, but you can actually answer those embarrassing, those curly questions. I mean, there's a little boy who went up to his dad at the table and said, "Dad, where did I come from?" The dad goes, "Oh no, I can't believe I get that question." And so he proceeded to give the whole story. And the kid's going, and he says, "Do you understand now?" And the kid's going, "Well, why did you ask the question?" And the little boy says, "Well, John said he comes from Wonga Park. I come from..." So it's really good to clarify the question before you answer it, just at an age-appropriate... There was also another little boy who came up to his mum and dad while they were at the table and says, do you have sexual relations? And they're looking shocked about this story. And they, yes. And he goes, why don't they come and visit? Just to clarify the questions every now and then. But the fact is, the table should be a place where any question could be answered. So if I was going to challenge you, how's your table? Is it feeling very welcome, or is it a place where lecture takes place all the time? Is it where the tone of the voice is not as welcoming and loving and caring? Is it a place where everyone feels valued and heard? The benefits of the family meal time are very, very high. In fact, there's a lot of data that says if you have 3 to 5 meals around a table where good conversation, technology free, it doesn't work when the TV's on or when you're watching your iPod and your iPhone and things like that. In fact, my mother-in-law came over and she SMS'd at the table. My boys were horrified. They said, get out, you know. But if you have regular meal times, about 3 to 5 a week, kids do better academically, socially, psychologically, able to be more resilient, able to be better with able to troubleshoot things. They're less likely to be involved in risky behaviour and less likely to be involved in drugs and alcohol. There are a lot of benefits from the family meal time. So what's it like around your table? The second thing is, second tip, not just family meal time, the second thing is having an open heart. And you might say, well, that's really bright, Brett, an open heart. That's going to really, very profound. Jesus was asked this question by the Pharisees, and they were trying to test him. And it says in verse in Matthew 19, and they were asking, was it lawful to get divorce? Now, I'm not going to go into the sensitivity about this issue about divorce, because there are a lot of legitimate reasons and there are a lot of illegitimate reasons for getting divorce. But the fact is, they were trying to test him on this really sensitive issue. And Jesus replied this. He says, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard. But it was not this way from the beginning. Because ideally, what God has joined together, let no man separate. In Proverbs 28, verses 14, it says, but he who hardens his heart falls into trouble. It's really important for healthy relationships to take place, both as a husband and wife, with your family, and extend it through, is to actually have an open heart. Because that's when friendships occur, that's when passion and fun and intimacy and deep connection can take place, when our hearts are open. 1 Peter verses 1:22 says this, love one another deeply from the heart. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. So why does our heart close? Why does it get so closed? As in counselling, often the counsellor will actually try and discover if a couple are in there having some problems in their relationship, they'll always go to where the heart condition is. They also want to find out if there's a crack, if there's some softening, if there is any chance for reconciliation. If the heart becomes hard, it's almost impossible for there to be reconciliation. But if there's a slight crack, if there's a slight opportunity for the heart to be softened, there is always hope. And there's always hope with the transforming power of Jesus Christ in people's lives. But when we feel emotionally safe, our hearts will be softened. But when we are emotionally unsafe, our hearts become hardened. It's sort of like flight and fight response. I heard this from Greg and Erin Smalley. This is where I got this advice from. And then I was talking about having our heart being softened is making it so it's ready for how you develop a healthy relationship. But when our heart is hardened or we feel unsafe, our heart closes up. So how do we actually have a healthy and emotionally safe environment? It takes intentional. You have to show value. You have to show acceptance. You have to show forgiveness. All these things in our life actually help us have a healthy, emotionally safe heart. But often, our hearts, is a condition of where we're at in life. When we show value and consideration, acceptance and forgiveness, and appreciation, our hearts will be softened. It says, and let us not love with mere words or tongue, but with actions and in truth. It's all very well to say the words. It's a lot more different when we put it into action. When was the last time you thanked your wife for looking after the kids? I mean, it's been touch and go with my boys, and occasionally my wife wanted to put them on the nature strip and put a sign out that says, "Free to a good home." When was the last time, husbands, you said, "Thank you"? Wives, when was the last time you said thank you to your husband? Kids, when was the last time you thanked your parents for loving you unconditionally? Because it's also touch and go sometimes. When was the last time you said to your kids, "Thank you for being who you are"? Not about your results, but for just who you are. Those simple acts of showing appreciation go a long way to have healthy relationships. We often can take one another, our closest people, for granted. We need to be very intentional about having a heart that is open to show appreciation. For where your treasure is, so your heart will be also, it says in Luke. Other ways that we can actually get this area of having an open heart is the area of forgiveness. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, it says Colossians 3:13. The first time I ever experienced really true forgiveness was from my father. I was 14 years of age, and he was away overseas on business, and I wanted to do something nice for him. I wanted to do something really nice for him. So I thought, I'll wash his car. Now that looks very good in theory, because in some country people, they can drive the car at the age of 6. I was not one of those. And it looked really easy. I'd sort of back the car out, but I couldn't see over the back of the dash, so I put my foot down on the floor, and I thought it was the floor, but I actually put my foot on the accelerator. And next thing you know, I'm steering, out of control and smashed into the fence. Fortunately, I hit the brake at the right time before I went into the next door neighbour's lounge room. And I've got this huge dent in the bumper bar. And my mum said to me, "Wait until your father gets home." They're still resonating, and I'm still having inner healing counselling because of that. And I remember my dad coming home, and I didn't want to go out and greet him because I knew I'd be dead meat. And the fact is, he came in, knocked on my door, and I said, "Hi, Dad, welcome home. I suppose you heard Mum told on me," and she dobbed on me probably, and explained it. And he goes, "That's fine." I said, I'm so sorry. And he just said, "It's okay." Now, I don't recommend that to do at home. It was done. I was doing something nice. I was doing something good. It didn't turn out so good, but the fact is, I actually still got that bumper bar. It's underneath my house still today. It's still a few years old now, and it's a great object lesson to actually use for kids and bringing the whole bumper bar to work. But the fact is, he showed me true forgiveness, and it's the same way is that God forgives us. We can't mess up enough for him to say, "I forgive you." It's a very powerful thing. And that example that my Father gave to me is the same example that our Heavenly Father is over our lives. And the final actually area is this area of acceptance. The story of the prodigal son, where he went off and did all what he wanted to do, live a high lifestyle, and yet the Father accepted him. No matter how much he messed up, that acceptance, unconditional love, is something that we all need to do. Quite often, because of unforgiveness, because we didn't get our own way, because they're not thinking the way that we think, and we're not getting our own way, there's conflict, there's dysfunction, and our hearts get hardened as a result. But when our hearts are soft, when our hearts are showing appreciation and value, and our hearts will be able to be forgiven and accepted for who we are, there is a chance for reconciliation, there is a chance for healthy relationships to take place, and to get away from the dysfunctionality and to get to a healthy family home, a healthy relationship to extended families. It's not as simple as that and say, "I forgive you," because I've heard some horrific stories of people doing some awful things to one another. But always, you have to own the things that you can own and ask for forgiveness. Even if you're only 2% at fault, you should own that 2%. And it's a very healing place. And I've seen time and time again families being reconciled, relationships being restored, when someone had the audacity to actually say, I was wrong. Would you please forgive me? It can soften a lot of things. And dads in particular, it's a very good role modeling to say that to your kids. I'm not very good at this. I'm a work in progress. I smile. I laugh at my kids. It says that fathers, do not provoke your kids to wrath. I'm a work in progress. I start getting the giggles because their kids, when they're hurt or when they're angry, their face looks so funny. I get sent to my room. I come out to my wife. I have to come out of my room and my wife tells me, go and apologise. Okay. I'll be back. I'm sorry. and then they know that my heart is trying to be as sincere as possible. But it's a really powerful thing to be able to say, I am sorry. And another very powerful thing is that I love you unconditionally. Not conditionally where you have to fit all the little ducks in a row, but to love you unconditionally. The third and final thing, after we've done, family meal times is one thing, having an open heart. And the third and final one, it may seem very, very obvious, and it is a loving and growing relationship with the Heavenly Father, with God. There's 2 commandments we're meant to do. Love God with all of our heart, soul, and strength. Our second one will be much easier if we get the first one right, and that is to love others as ourselves. I've very rarely seen any relationship be so dysfunctional when someone's got a growing and loving relationship with God. It's still possible because God has given us all the free will. You might love God with all your heart and soul and strength, and you love that person, but that doesn't mean that other person's going to love you back. They've got a free choice. But if you've got a loving and growing relationship with Jesus, other things will fall into place. Our desire is to have that loving, growing relationship. And it's easy to say, yes, I will, but we tend to live 6 days a week, doing what we want to do. And then the 7th day, we actually start, I better go back to God. It's a lifestyle, it's a daily occurrence to actually take up our cross, take up our relationship with Jesus, and to put it into practice. Not to become theorists, but become practitioners when it comes to loving God. And as we do that, as we love God more, it's much easier to love our wives. It's much easier to love our husbands. It's much easier to love our kids. It's much easier to love our parents. It's much easier to love our neighbours and our work colleagues when our loving, gracious Heavenly Father is loving us as much. He can't love you anymore. It's only up to us how much we love Him back. And when we get that right, when we get that balance right, our relationships will be much more healthier. Be able to be restored back into what God has for them. Now, I'm sure in a room, as I said before, there'll be some areas there's been some dysfunction. We're not immune to this problem. We're not immune to having conflict. We're not immune to having relationship conflicts and those type of things. People hurt us. People actually don't value us. People don't accept us. People don't forgive us. And that's when we come an area where we have some problems. But the trouble is, God has given us His Word to actually guide us. It's His instruction manual on how to have healthy relationships. We're not meant to do it alone. Now, if you have got some problems, and as I said, you may not have it now, you may have had it in the past, you may have it presently, but it will happen in the future, just through life. Don't do it alone. We're not meant to be islands. We're actually meant to do things in community. Never take this for granted when you can share each other's highs and lows. Don't be like a lot of people do, and they put their masks on. And I'm fine. Not really. As Scrat said, I'm fine, I'm going to die. The fact is, we should be honest and transparent when we have got some challenges. Don't be like the frog that was put into into some water, and he swam around, and someone put the stove on, and the water heated up. And he could have hopped out at any time, but the water got so hot, it boiled, and he boiled to death. Don't be like that. Be proactive. Get some help. Get some advice. Share some of your challenges. A problem shared is often a problem halved. It doesn't take the problem go away, but it means I've got someone that's going to be praying for me, interceding on our behalf, and maybe able to give you some wise counsel. In a room this size, it's impossible to be able to give that one-on-one attention. But there's one thing I can do, and that's pray. So whatever you're going through in your household, that's one thing I can do. I can pray. I can't counsel everyone. I can't give you this magic, read my website, read this book, and everything's going to be great. We actually have to do things in community to be able to solve some of our challenges. But one thing we can do is enter into the heavenly realm and submit these to God. Let me pray for you right now. Father God, I just thank you so much that you've given us such an example of true love and acceptance for each and every one of us. I pray, Father God, that you help each and every one of us to have healthy relationships, to have opportunities to show value, to have opportunities to have clear communication, to have opportunities to show true forgiveness. And I pray where there's been some dysfunction that you will come in and encourage reconciliation, to be restoring the hearts and minds of people. Father God, I help each and every one of us have the maturity to be actually have that first person that offer the olive branch to restore unhealthy relationships. It's not simple, it's not meant to be easy, but Lord, that's your desire to have families being restored. Let us be great role models in our communities, in our families, to have healthy marriages, to have healthy relationships with our kids, for kids to have healthy relationships with their parents. Lord, I pray that you help each and every one of us have the life that you actually predestined at the beginning. We've all fallen short of our optimal level, and I pray that we can get back into the groove of living a life fully devoted to your Son, Jesus. I pray a blessing upon that in Jesus' most wonderful name. Amen. Amen. There's one final story. I just thought of it then. And it's from the Psalms. And you'll know it very well. And in the Psalms, the psalmist was writing about some challenges, And in verse 5 it says, I prepare a table before your enemy. In some version it says, I prepare a banquet. Another version says, I prepare a 6-course meal. Now, if I'm going through some challenges, if I'm going through problems, the last thing I'm thinking about is eating. My appetite goes down. But in God's infinite wisdom, he says, I know what you're going through. I know some challenges you're going to have. And regardless of what's going through your life and some of the dysfunctionalities and the challenges, and even before your enemies, there's going to be a full course meal ready and waiting for you. Allow God to prepare that meal for you, knowing that he's got your back. He's valuing you. He's accepting you. He's showing unconditional love and forgiveness. And he's preparing a meal for each and every one of us. Thank you.